Son of Dracula is a tale of romance, betrayal, and repetitive boredom brought about by a confused mess of character motivations while continuously showing the audience something and then telling us what we just saw or telling us about something that happened off camera, even if that thing is really important to the story and we're not shown it for some reason. All tied together by a complete lack of purpose. The ambiguous male relative of Count Dracula, referred to as son in the film's title for obvious promotional purposes.
Evil son?
Why'd you disturb me?
I'm sorry.
We'll get to that reference. Moves to New Orleans and makes a bride of a daughter of a wealthy plantation owner, killing him and marrying her to quickly rise to a position of power. However, she's actually still in love with her childhood boyfriend, conspiring with him to use Dracula to first become immortal and then destroy him so that they can be wealthy and powerful and in love forever. So the guy burns Dracula's coffin so he has nowhere to go when the sun comes out, and then he dies. And then she dies too, because he's like, I guess I gotta save her soul, but whatever. Dracula dies.
It's a great movie. So much fun.
This movie sucks.
The third Dracula sequel, that being the last in which Dracula isn't a part of a monster rally ensemble, behind the scenes is the story of sibling rivalry. As we've gone through the history of these films and compared it to our modern day equivalent, the MCU, one of our lead architects in the series, like the Russo brothers or Kevin Feige, has been screenwriter Kurt Sidomak. Having already written 2 of the Invisible Man sequels, The Wolfman, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Sidomak wrote the initial screenplay for Son of Dracula. However, once his brother Robert Sidomak was picked to be the director, Robert, wanted his brother off the project. And I guess they just didn't get along very well.
That is so ironic.
Stupid.
That it's a movie about childhood sibling rivalry, and then it's ruined by sibling rivalry. That's great. I mean, this movie isn't exactly about that. It's maybe has elements of it, because you literally have the black hat daughter versus the white hat daughter, the blonde one that's good versus the black haired one that's evil.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of that, but essentially the script ended up going to Eric Taylor. Eric Taylor had written a couple of the other films that we had also previously had talked about, Phantom of the Opera being one, but also Ghost of Frankenstein. So it's like, I don't know what to tell you, It's like, here you go. Kurt, you're off the project. We're giving it to Eric. Now, returning in this film, now having played not 1, not 2, not 3, but now 4 monsters, we have Lon Chaney Jr., and this time playing Count Alucard, a.k.a. Count Dracula.
Horribly miscast as Count Alucard.
You spell it backwards, and then it's somebody else.
Dude, I just put together that you need a mirror to flip Alucard to Dracula, revealing that he's Dracula, much like a mirror would reveal that he's a vampire because he has no reflection.
Wow, you should have wrote this movie.
The reveal would have been better had they involved a mirror, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Imagine he's standing in front of his trunk or something and someone looks in the mirror and his reflection disappears, but all you see is Dracula. It'd be like, what? It'd be like a mind.
It would be better than Alucard.
But nobody cared enough about this movie to do something clever.
Evelyn Ankers, who we first saw in The Wolfman and then The Ghost of Frankenstein, returns here, again, alongside Chaney. She had some absence because we had our Hotsy from the last 2-3 movies, and then now she comes back.
Bring in the hot blonde with the accent.
Yeah, they didn't can her. But, however, I did read that this movie was pulled back before they released it. So it could have been they had already shot all of her stuff, and then they're like, okay, we're going to release this one now. Who knows? She's there. I don't honestly think she cared she was there. She's getting a paycheck. That's kind of how the movie feels anyway. You're like, all right, I'm just doing this another monster film with Chaney, who I'm not. Apparently, she didn't really like Chaney. Supposedly. Her and Chaney didn't get along. I don't know if that's true, but it's funny because they did a bunch of movies together besides this one. So,
well,
I don't know.
He probably got drunk on set and tried to get it in, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah.
Anyway.
He's like, what? I'm a wolfman. It's in my character to see something appetizing and bite it.
That was his explanation on set that day. And then J. Edward Bromberg returns from The Invisible Agent and Phantom of the Opera as our Van Helsing character.
I kind of think that maybe just by default, he might receive one of these tonight.
Yeah.
Because this movie blows. You ready to get into why it blows?
It doesn't blow total chunks, but it definitely blows. It is a movie that you're like, hey, it's son of Dracula. You know, it's like, it's this guy, not this guy because of copyright claims, but this guy, and then it's his son. And you're like, oh man, we haven't had one of these in a while because we've done tons of mummy films and tons of Invisible Man films. And we got the Wolfman, and now we got, Frankenstein's monster, and then a couple thrown in randos. And then we're like, oh, what happened to the original? What happened to Dracula? I want to see Dracula. This is the best they could do.
Yeah, we did Son of Frankenstein, but it was the actual son, and it's clear. And he's inherited the castle. And when he shows up to the town of Frankenstein, he's given his father's effects. Dracula's daughter, it was very clear. This is my father. She even has the body that she then burns. And it's very clear. Her father was the actual Count Dracula from the original movie. Here, it's never addressed. It's only mentioned in the title, which, as I said, that's for promotional purposes. Alucard himself never brings it up. There's never any talk about his... he talks about his homeland.
I am here because this is a young and virile race, not dry and decadent like ours. They have what I want, what I need, what I must have.
But he never says anything about his family. He's just vampire guy. He's just generic
vampire
guy.
One of the problems is, and they somewhat, this was sort of in the press of the time, is that this film isn't part of the continuity. Like, it's the equivalent of being like, let's slap the name on it and sell it as is because we need another movie in our franchise, but it's not. But it's weird because it is based off the book Dracula. Obviously, they use the name in the movie, so there's that. However, the problem is it's almost outside of the continuity that was somewhat established in the last two films, where the last two films, we had Dracula's Daughter was a continuation of sorts, which skipped a couple characters for no reason.
Yeah.
And was its own thing. And then this movie decides, let's do our own thing, but let's kind of readapt the original book, which you kind of see bits and pieces here and there of that readaptation. Of course, we have a Van Helsing character. Yes, we have two sisters this time, but it's almost the same as Mina and Lucy. It's sort of kind of the same thing. We don't necessarily have a Jonathan Harker, but we do have a main male lead of sorts who's trying to get his girl back,
They're
like we got the fiance. So there's all the pieces are kind of there, but it's it's definitely not the same. But again, they purposefully in the film go, hey, this Dracula bloke, like, he died in the 1800s, and it was a old superstition.
Can you tell me, is it possible there's a Count Dracula still living?
Dracula? I'm sure there is not. History says the last Count Dracula died in the Middle Ages. Why do you ask?
A certain Count Alucard is visiting a friend of mine. I happen to notice that the name spelled backward is Dracula. It made me curious.
That is strange. According to the legends of my people, the last Count Dracula became one of the undead, a vampire, and was finally destroyed in the 19th century. I am considered somewhat of an authority on the subject.
I know, Professor. That's why I called you. If this man is an imposter, why should he assume that name of all others?
Oh, he wouldn't, not if he was sane. In Transylvania, the name is associated only with evil.
But, like, we obviously saw the previous films took place probably sometime in the early 30s. Like, that's how they're presented.
Yeah.
So it feels weird. But on top of that, it's this movie it's like, well, then if I'm a character in this movie, why does me reading Alucard mean anything? Like, it means something to the audience, but it doesn't. It's the equivalent to...
You just killed James Bond.
Is that who it was?
Lady, how do you know who James Bond is? And you're saying it like it's a big deal, like the world would know who he is. He's the world's spy. Like, why would he know that?
Within James Bond's universe, nobody should know who he is because he's a spy living in the shadows. The government would constantly be protecting his... Yes.
Right.
The government would constantly be protecting his identity and denying that he exists. And then other spies would know who he was because they'd have dossiers on him and all that type of stuff. People in the shadows would be familiar with other people in the shadows.
Evil shadows?
Evil shadows.
Evil shadows.
In this movie, only people in the evil shadows would, which, by the way, every time they would say Dark Oaks, that's all I could think of, where it was like, Dark Oaks?
Shadows.
We live in Oaks. Dark Oaks.
I love Dark Oaks.
Right away, as you already pointed out, the doctor character, Dr. Brewster or whatever, immediately gives away the Count Alucard thing.
We're here to meet a friend of the Caldwells, Count Alucard.
There was no count on this train. All old customers. Say, there was a lot of stuff in the baggage car that might belong to your Count.
Immediately, within the first couple minutes.
D.R. A-C...
What are you mumbling about?
Nothing, just a silly idea hit me.
It's like, oh, look at the name on here. It must be Dracula backwards. You know, you're like, no, if you're going to do something clever like that, maybe somebody in the audience would be going, Alucard. That's Dracula backwards. That should have been held onto for a while.
That could have been a mystery. And if it took place in the actual universe of the previous two films, made that some kind of continuity thing where it was like, that happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and then these are the descendants of those characters. Because Mina and Harker, like, they left scot-free, so, like, we could have gotten the Revenge of Dracula story, essentially, where it's like, yeah, it's their kids. Then maybe some of this would have made more sense.
But they established throughout the story that Dracula is a known figure, right? Like, she mentions, Kay mentions him to Frank later, and he knows the story. He's like, wait a second, isn't he the vampire guy?
Perhaps you'll understand when I tell you Count Alucard's real name. It's Count Dracula.
Count Dracula? You mean the Hungarian who's supposed to be...
Don't use that word, Frank. We don't like it. Say rather that we are undead, immortal.
And then the doctor is reading the Dracula novel at some point. So it's like, okay, within the universe of this movie, they know who Dracula is, but all the more, that's where it's important that if he's going to change his name, then change the name and have Dracula show up to this new city and kind of behave normal. Have him just be a normal guy. Instead, it just goes right into him doing vampire stuff and not really hiding it all in a very sloppy way. Not in a clever way, but in a sloppy way.
Yeah.
But that revelation that Alucard is Dracula backwards should have been pushed to at least to the scene where Brewster and Claire, I think the other sister.
Well, it may not be ethical, but there are reasons why we ought to find out more about the Count.
Go into the guest house on the plantation and they start going through Alucard's things. That should have been the moment where, you know, maybe in a mirror they see the reverse or whatever. But you're given that right away. You're given this revelation, or you give this thing that would have been an interesting revelation for everybody later. Like at the same time that people are putting together that this mysterious Count might be a vampire, they should have been also figuring out the name. But instead, everything's thrown at you immediately without any kind of clever unfolding, right? That's the biggest frustration of this movie, is constantly telling you things you already know,
tease.
Or it's telling you about interesting things that happened off camera that we don't get to see.
Ever since you met this Count Alucard in Budapest, you've changed.
So, speaking of things that happened off camera, you, McCurdy, some have referred to as the king of the Malapropism, which is to say that your brain combines two things into one that at first people might say is stupid, but if you really think about
Charlie,
it, ends up being
creative. Let me explain what happens. Okay. So, you know, I'm not perfect, right? I have flaws like everybody else. I've got flaws. And one of my flaws is that myself, I might get like really emotional with like, oh, I want to get this idea out, right? And then what happens is like, the wires get crossed where it's like,
you're like the two guys from Phantom. You're the two guys from Phantom trying to get through the door at the same time.
We're trying to get through the door.
And they end up combining.
So the thought, like this is completely off topic, but like one thing that will happen to my brain sometimes is if I read something, like I go, okay, like Patrick, and I have to like, okay, I got to remember Patrick was doing X, Y, and Z later, and then I'll go up to some random person, and my brain has already slugged in the word Patrick as the first name word that's in my brain. So I'll talk to somebody and I'll go, Patrick. And they're like, I'm not Patrick. I'm like, oh, right, Kurt. You know, and it's like, it's already stuck in there. So it's almost like even with words, I might have a thought here and a thought here. And I'm like, I'm looking for this word, but I kind of also mean this. And then they just go like that. Like it just comes out the same time.
So you called me, you messaged me as you were partway through this movie, and you told me that you were so confurious about this movie, and you didn't even hear it when you said it. You didn't even hear it when you said it, but I listened to the message over and over. Like, did he just say confurious? Like confused and furious at the same time? So it's like, that's perfect. This movie makes you confurious. You're like, I don't know what is going on, and I'm pissed off about it. So enter the first movie on this list. I mean, you could say that some of the
there's a lot of confurious movies.
Like, Below the Mummy is now the confurious. That's the threshold of confuriosity is is below the Mummy.
Because we got down to like, yeah, what was it? Invisible Man Returns, and then like you get to the Werewolf, and those movies are just, they're fine, but they're not great. And you're like, eh. And then below that, you're like, I am confused and I'm furious for watching this. Like, why did I put myself through this?
Yes.
I'm confurious.
Put it on a t-shirt, Confurious. The rank store, Confurious. No, it's too easy. We shouldn't do that.
We should do it.
So let me just lay out the first act as evidence of just how sloppy this movie is, to where at every turn, every few minutes, I'm going, nobody actually cares about this movie. Nobody gave a damn. And it's very frustrating because, it's a movie about the son of Dracula. Like, you could do something clever within that space, and they really do nothing. Yeah. So this train shows up, and Dracula's not there. Alucard is Dracula. Dracula is Alucard. Same thing. I'll just probably use them interchangeably. But the Count isn't on the train, but all of his boxes are, right? Immediately you assume they're his boxes of dirt because we've seen Dracula movies before. So, they're confused, but then they have one of their servants.
Yes, ma'am, Miss Kid. This is Matthews. I brought the trunks and the boxes, but Mr. Frank said the Count didn't come on the train.
Oh. Well, put them in the guest house, as I told you.
Oh, yes, ma'am, but I'll have to have some help. They're amazingly heavy.
Then get some of the other boys to help you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Come on.
One of their hands.
It's your words, and you're doing this.
Yes.
You're doing this to yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
hand,
this.
a plantation hand, brings the boxes in, and it's pretty clear that the boxes that came on the train contain Alucard. They say they're really heavy, so we know that he's in there, right? The boxes have him. And yet his introduction is him as a bat killing Queen Zimba. Who is Queen Zimba? We talk about who Queen Zimba is
Charlie?
Later.
Who is she?
Queen Zimba's first words are,
"You do not know why you came here tonight. It was because I wished you here."
Why? Isn't Count Alucard
I wished you here to warn you.
Kay's like, what? No, I do know why I'm here. I just am here to ask you if Alucard is coming tonight. Because you're like this soothsayer or whatever. You're this gypsy woman. Is he coming here tonight? But it was hinted at that Kay knew he was in the boxes because she's staring at them and talking about telepathy.
No lectures on metaphysics tonight, huh? You should allow your mind to explore the unknown, Claire. Then you wouldn't laugh at telepathy. I know Count Alucard will be here tonight, without benefit of telephone.
As if she's communicating or just somehow can feel that Alucard's in the boxes. So we assume when she's running in the woods that she's going to see him. But all of a sudden she ends up in this hovel containing this weird, stupid witch who doesn't need to be in the movie at all.
The angel of death hovers over a great house. I see it in ruins. Weeds, vines growing over it. Bats flying in and out the broken windows.
But I want to know of Count Alucard. Is he coming? Do you hear me? Do you hear me, Queen Zimba?
Alucard is not his name. You must stop him before it is too late. Stop him before death comes to Dark Oaks.
Tell me if he is coming tonight.
I see you marrying a corpse, living in a grave. I see...
Her only purpose is to predict a future where Dracula takes over the plantation and, kills everybody and makes it awful, just like he did back home. So that part's confused, where it's like, I would have thought that Kay would go to meet Alucard, but she's talking to this stupid witch who then is immediately killed by Dracula? Why? Why did Dracula kill her in the first place? And If Kay's watching it, why didn't she knows he's a vampire. Like, isn't she aware that he can turn into bats at that point? I would think Kay knows what he is. So shouldn't she be saying, hey, Count, I'm here. Let's make out. Instead, she just stands there as he kills the queen. But why does he kill the queen? Is it just because she's warning Kay about impending doom she's already aware of? Okay, fine, kill her. But then turn into a human and embrace Kay as her lover. That would be a really cool reveal for the man. But instead, just like, nope, like, it's just, nobody cares about this movie. And then we cut to the party and Dracula is just there. He's just there. That's our introduction to him, is he's just standing there, right? Instead of Kay going to see him, go to meet him instead of seeing the witch, she would feel him in the boxes, go find the boxes, open up the boxes. Maybe there's a puff of smoke and she greets him. And then, you know, we immediately know that they're in league, right? Or even that scene, it's a great scene where she goes to the swamp and his coffin floats up out of the water, and then he comes out of it in the form of smoke, and then he turns into a man and he floats over to her. That should have been his introduction at the very beginning of the movie, but instead we have the boxes and the witch and the party, and he just shows up, and all of this is happening to where I'm like, this is already really sloppy. It's very frustrating.
You can tell from the very beginning of this movie, as we've been watching these movies, you can tell which ones tend to be better within the first 2 minutes, and a lot of it's just the intro. Like, if you have a really strong intro to these movies, that usually means to me, okay, this might be a good one. This one has a really weak intro. And the weak intro is, we're starting at a train station for a Dracula film. Not an evil train station. No, a train station.
And during the day.
And imagine the other Dracula films that we watched out of the series. You see the first one, it's like, we're in a horse carriage, we're in Carpathia.
Yeah, it opens in the evening when the sun is going down and the locals are telling Renfield he's crazy to continue on to the castle because it's almost nighttime and they're all terrified of vampires.
Okay, we're starting to set a mood here. There's something creepy and unsettling about this whole thing. And then in Dracula's Daughter, it's like moments after Dracula's been murdered and you've got the cops coming in, and it's Carfax Abbey where, you know, they find his body. That's like kind of spooky. We're already in the mood. This movie's like, we're going to start in a train station. So I'm already like, what is this movie? And then on top of that, I don't have a single character to latch on to this movie. Like, that's the biggest problem with this film, is that even the Dracula character doesn't really seem to have agency as far as like who's pulling the story forward. You know, in the original, at least you had Renfield, where Renfield kind of pulled the first half of the story, and then the second half was more like sort of Harker / Van Helsing. This movie, it's like, I don't have a single character to pull me through, because I'm like, are we following the girl? Are we following Evelyn Anker's character? Are we following another Frank in the series?
Yeah. They just keep naming people Frank. You're like, why? Stop doing that. Stop
so
it.
They're just like, that's where the movie starts to just like really kind of,
it just starts to be,
doesn't know where to go.
This is where it just becomes people talking in rooms, and you're like, but I hate to complain about people talking in rooms, because sometimes that can be really great, but this ends up being, as I said in the intro, it's like telling you stuff you've already seen, or telling you about stuff that we didn't see that's more interesting than hearing about it secondhandedly by just somebody in a room.
This is another one of those movies where it's like, it is tell, don't show. And
100%.
That's frustrating. That's frustrating. Which is funny, because this movie has some of the best, out of all of the Dracula movies, it has the best Dracula effects we've seen.
Okay,
however,
we'll keep going on
We'll
that.
get to that in a little bit. Okay. We'll get to that in a little bit. We don't have to talk about that here.
So it's already sloppy, but then it keeps going, right? We're still only in the first act. Right after that party, horrible intro of Dracula, Kay and her fiance are outside, and he's talking to her about how everybody knows, everybody is aware that Queen Zimba died of a heart attack.
I rather thought you might be worrying about that old Hungarian gypsy you brought back with you. I understand she died tonight.
Queen Zimba?
Queen? That old swamp cat with a cabin full of dried lizards and stuffed toads? It's good riddance, if you ask me.
How did you know she was dead?
That sort of news travels fast. One of the farmhands told me. He also said you were there when she died.
I'd hope no one knew that.
Why? She died of a heart attack. Certainly your being there could have no bearing on it.
Oh, they'll ask questions. What was I doing there? What brought on the attack? And if I told them, no one around here would believe it. Oh, what do they know of these occult matters? Blind fools.
Even though it appeared to be a very isolated incident, it just happened in her hovel out in the middle of the woods, like 15 minutes ago. Everybody's aware of it just so we can have a dialogue scene that lays out Kay's backstory.
So wait, you're telling me that Kay went and met Dracula and then was going to come here and then bring Dracula with her, and like her whole motivation, her whole story supposedly is that she wants Dracula's power and is just basically being this, basically like a gold digger, but for like powers, and then wants his powers, but then wants like gets a simp boyfriend to kill Dracula, so then she has power.
Count Alucard is immortal. Through him, I attained immortality. Through me, you will do the same. And we will spend eternity together.
But then also like tells the simp boyfriend that they're gonna be together, and so he's gotta do this.
There's one thing you must do while you're still in your present form.
What is that?
Destroy Dracula.
That's pretty much the whole plot, where it's this really messy, weird love triangle. It's really like a girl controlling a simp is the whole movie, is what this whole movie ends up becoming. But then you're telling me all this, but then before this, there was a whole thing where like they met and we never saw any of that.
Ever since you met this Count Alucard in Budapest, you've changed. I hardly know you.
Wouldn't that been a better intro? Was like she meets Dracula in Carpathia and she's like on vacation and then ends up in the castle and, you know, meets Dracula and he seduces her and then she's like, I'm gonna go back to the States, and he's like, take me with you.
There's this whole backstory that we're fed. In all these other movies, we go to faraway lands in the opening, and then we come back to America or back to London or whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do that. You could build a set or two and just tell that story briefly as an intro.
I have an assumption why that is, though. My quick assumption, considering how these movies have been being made so far, mainly the sequels, I mean, aside from Phantom, but Phantom of the Opera was kind of a different scenario. It really seems like Universal had these sets available, and they were like, well, what set do we got available this week? Well, we have the plantation set from this Southern type movie that we made earlier this year. Okay, yeah, we'll have Dracula come to Louisiana. That's an interesting premise, but like the lead up to it just sucks. And then we've seen other movies where they've done this, where like in The Mummy's Hand, where instead of using an Egyptian temple, they're like, well, let's just use this Aztec one and no one's going to know the difference. We'll just sort of change it a little bit and no one's really going to care. But it's very obvious if you know anything about archaeology or history, you're like, yeah, that's not Egyptian. That's South America. You know, that's something different. And so that's what this movie reads to me, is that they hit it a little bit better here than I think some other movies have. But it was really like obvious. They're like, well, we don't have any other sets we can use. So you can use the plantation set because no one's using that this week.
But even then, if you have that limitation, then don't have this stupid backstory with Queen Zimba. They're like, oh, hey, Kay, remember when you met this weird count guy overseas and you came back with Queen Zimba and just so she could be killed right away? Like, don't do any of that and just have Count Dracula show up at night at the train station with a bunch of boxes and he starts getting in with this family. Like, nobody's ever met him. He's just a mysterious figure who left Europe a long time ago, and he just shows up here because there's this really interesting story going on here that is never truly brought to life, which is that Dracula's starting over, right? Like, he's staging a coup. He's step by step taking over this entire family. He no longer has a castle and immense wealth. He's going to steal a kingdom.
Everything has worked out as we planned. This house is ours. No one else has any claim on it.
I like old houses. And I like your countryside and the swampland.
It's very different from your homeland.
That is why I like it. My land is dry and desolate. The soil is red with the blood of 100 races. There is no life left there. Here, you have a young and vital race.
A big plantation in the South is a kingdom that he is going to take over.
He's like, mine's dried out. Everything's been dried out here. Like, the people are scared of me. Where should I go? Oh, I'll go to America. It's kind of what they do in the original book, right?
Yeah.
Where he goes to London to go feed, essentially. But this, it's like, oh, I'm going to come to America, and there's tons of people here.
And it's fresh, and it's a young nation, but it's all done without any steady build or cleverness. He's not pulling any clever Game of Thrones strategy. He's just he's doing things in a very expedited way instead of a slow build. It's just like very quick things. Like getting back to, where we were at in the story, she invites Count from Europe to come to their plantation, and she throws a huge party for him. and then he doesn't show up on time, even though it would have been more interesting for him to show up at night and then he gets to the plantation and there's a party going on.
I would have rewrote the whole script. The beginning of the movie, I would have rewritten it where she's coming back from Transylvania.
And brings him with.
Maybe
she's already a vampiress.
Right. You bring her back. There's now a lure of mystery. Who's this man? And then the simp boyfriend's like, wait, we were going to get married.
Exactly.
What's going on with this?
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And then it's like, yeah, I am worried about it because you're like...
You're acting weird and people are dying around the city now. Like, we're all very concerned.
And then, like, you don't show all the murders. Like, that's the other problem. This movie wants to show its cards at every second it gets because some of the effects are cool. But at the same time, you're like, let's hide some of that. Like, let's make it a little more mystery.
So I have an interesting version and you have an interesting version. Let's go back to as it is, which sucks. Which is that she's throwing this party, and even though she's engaged to be married, they throw this huge party for this wealthy man, this count.
I'm afraid we'll have to do this all over again when Count Alucard does come.
And yet somehow her whole family's going along with this. Her fiance is going along with this. How is anybody okay with a soon-to-be married woman bringing this boyfriend in and throwing a party for him? It's so sloppy.
Yeah, like the only hint of reasoning we get is something about like, oh, I talked to the Hungarian government. They say this count doesn't exist.
Alucard is an imposter, a fake.
How can you say such a thing?
I wrote to Senator Manfield. His reply informed me that Count Alucard is not known at the Hungarian embassy.
You must be very proud of that bit of snooping.
I only did what any man would do to protect the girl he intends to marry.
And it makes it sound like, okay, maybe there was going to be some kind of like trade or they were going to make some kind of political deal or something, you know.
I don't think so. I think the boyfriend is saying
I'm saying like you could have alluded to that being the reasoning why they brought not so much more of a we're bringing the count for more of a diplomatic reason. We're not bringing the count because she has a thing for him.
You're saying that doesn't
in
exist.
This movie.
You're saying that's
it
not
doesn't,
in there.
But it doesn't, but I feel like maybe that's where they were trying to go at some point, and then that just kind of got lost because they were like, yeah, we're throwing this party, and you're going to figure out why. It's just like, okay.
So, McCurdy, your wife goes to Europe, and she comes home, and she's like, yeah, I met this prince, and he's going to come visit. You'd be like, bitch. Nah, that ain't happening.
Prince ain't coming to my house.
What are you talking? Like, that's not going to happen. But everybody's going along with it. Like, it's this terrific thing.
Yeah.
And, versus like she has a sister who is, I think, unmarried. What if it was like he was going to come and court her or something, anything. But instead, it's just sloppy because, as I keep getting back to, nobody cares about this movie. So moving forward, then the father dies, right? Dracula kills him. And there's a purpose there.
You will find this will a comparatively simple document, owing chiefly to the fact that you two girls are the only living kin of Colonel Caldwell. It divides the entire estate, cash, securities, and all, evenly between...
Pardon me, Judge Simmons. May I ask the date of that will?
August 24th. It was made on the occasion of Miss Clare's attaining legal age and responsibility.
Then there's a will of a later date. There's no important difference between them, Claire.
There's a mighty important difference for you, Kay. According to this, you get nothing but the plantation. Claire gets all cash and securities. Properly witnessed and can't be disputed. But I can't imagine what your father was thinking of.
It's the way I wanted it. To divide the estate otherwise would have meant selling the plantation. I love Dark Oaks and hope to live here, always.
As I have told you, my dear, ours will be a different life, without material needs. A life that will last through eternity.
But again, it happens so quickly that it's like there's no intrigue, there's no cleverness to this story. Everything is expedited, everything happens quick, and then we take 20 minutes to talk about what just happened. And then something happens really quick, and then we sit around and talk about it for 20 minutes. This is one of the hardest movies that we've had to get through. Like, it takes me 3 hours to watch this movie. I think it's an hour and a half. I've watched it multiple times. Every time I watch this movie, it takes me twice as long to get through it because I need to take breaks because it hurts my brain to keep watching it because it's so poorly put together as far as flow goes, right? So then everybody's panicking because, it's like, oh no, something happened to Daddy. They run upstairs. His carpet is on fire. They put the carpet out and they say,
looks like the Colonel fell asleep and dropped his cigar. That's what started the fire.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
But when they show that, he's dead in bed on the other side of the room. And nobody points out how that makes no sense. That if he died in bed, how could he have fallen asleep in his chair, his wheelchair by the window and dropped his cigar and started a fire? I'm not nitpicking. I'm pointing out that I assume, again, that nobody cared about this movie. So I have to assume that it was a blocking issue, that the director wanted the vampire dialogue.
Doctor, what are those 2 marks on the throat? They don't look like burns.
He wanted that to happen around the bed and the fire dialogue and action to happen around the chair by the window, right? But they didn't rewrite the dialogue to make it make sense.
I'll smoke a cigar before going to bed.
In conclusion, nobody gave a shit about this movie. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a blocking thing where it was like, well, in the script, he's in the chair and he's dead and he drops the cigar and it starts a fire. But then we have to have a fire around the guy. How about he's just in bed and he's dead and then the cigar fire is over here? And it's like, okay, but once you separate them, it doesn't make sense unless you rewrite it a little bit. And they're like, who cares? Nobody cares. Just shoot the damn thing and move on. Like nobody is caring. Nobody is actively caring about this movie.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
And now it makes sense what you said about behind the scenes. It's like you had the writer. They got rid of the writer and just brought in a yes man probably. So then Alucard finally shows up. And he demands to be announced.
Announce Count Alucard. Explain that I came by motor and was delayed.
I'm sorry, sir, but Colonel Caldwell died tonight, and the family isn't receiving.
Announce me.
Yes, sir.
Announce me!
Yeah.
No, sir. We're closed tonight. Announce me, damn it.
Yeah, I said announce
just
me.
Just grabs. No, I said announce me. Yeah, this is the first instance where you go, oh no, like this was not the right person to cast.
Should
like
not have
Lon
been
Chaney.
Lonnie.
At this point, I think honestly, it was like Universal was trying to make these movies super cheap.
Yeah.
That's my assumption is that they're making these very cheap movies. So how do we get butts and seats? One, or how do we make this movie work? Right. One, we use really cheap sets. We can't build a bunch of castle sets or do a bunch of crazy stuff because like we gotta like keep the cost down. Okay, cool, we can do that. We got this, plantation. It's kind of spooky. Okay, we can go with that. That's cool. How else are we gonna get butts and seats? We'll bring back Lon Chaney because he's our big guy. He's our Wolfman. Like everyone wants to see a Lon Chaney picture because that's the name. That's when movie stars were a thing. So it's like, okay, let's cast him. And he's probably still mad about Phantom of the Opera, is my guess too.
Yeah.
So they just were like, okay, well, you can be Dracula. And he's like, great, I get to play another monster. And then it's very apparent really early on that it's like, this was not the right person to play this role at all.
No.
Like he's good actor, but either it's him or the director didn't understand the first film, how Dracula seduces and hypnotizes people.
Yes.
It was almost like the director's like, hypnotism? None of that bullshit. You're going to yell at him, tell him what's up. And you're just like, okay, that's what it reads like.
Bela Lugosi must have watched this laughing and just being like, you don't understand the portrayal at all. You don't understand Dracula as a character and how he should be portrayed as a gentleman. And everything about what makes Lon Chaney great as the Wolfman is why he's no good as Dracula. Him being emotional and vulnerable and being very good at projecting that vulnerability is exactly why he should not be Dracula. Because he's like a little boy. He's overly emotional. And you see that right off the bat when he's like, announce me. And the guy's like, no, we're closed. He should right away. I mean, in the original Dracula, the person doing that would have been like, I will announce you, But instead, he's like, announce me, and the guy's like, okay. And then to round out everything I've been saying about Act 1, he walks in and you're like, oh, cool, we're going to see him meet everybody. Nope, they just fade to black. They only talk about meeting him for the first time later. So much stuff is happening off camera that it makes you confurious. And this is just the first act.
I'm confused. That just gives you a taste. But when it comes down to it, it ends up becoming this story where the second half is a little more interesting, but it's still poorly executed. Where it becomes this kind of a Renfield story of sorts, where it's almost like she's the Dracula and he's the simp, or he's her familiar in a way, and so he's doing everything for her.
You seem to be Kay, but there's a strange difference. It's almost as if I didn't know you.
Does that mean you no longer love me?
I'll always love you.
Enough to spend the rest of your life with me.
But you're married, Kay. You're married to Alucard.
I don't love him, Frank. I never did.
But you're married to him.
I had to, Frank. It was part of the plan I told you about in the garden. I asked you to have faith in me then. I beg you to have faith in me now.
And it's just like, it's a simp mentality. It's like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll kill Dracula. I'll do this. I'll do that. There's this whole back and forth where it's like, he goes to meet her. She gets married to Dracula. Just like, okay, we're going to go get married.
May we come in? We want to be married.
Married? Yes, of course. Come right in.
And then he finds out, he gets angry in that jealous rage where then it becomes this dumb love triangle.
You're going back to town with me tonight. In the morning, you'll take the first train out. Kay will have the marriage annulled, and if you try to stop her or show up in this part of the country again, you'll be jailed.
And he pulls out a gun and he shoots her. But then because he's Dracula and he's undead, for some reason the bullet goes right through him. I guess because he can turn into smoke. And then kills her. So then he's all grieving.
Harry, I've killed Kay. It's all mixed up, but I know I shot her twice. Harry, am I insane? Could I have shot through Alucard and killed her without hurting him? Tell me what happened. Well, I shot right through him. I shot right through him. His Kay screamed and fell, and he just stood there. Just stood there staring at me.
Yeah, otherwise I would have just assumed that he was missing so much because he's throwing bullets again.
Then, like, there's this whole back and forth with the coroner coming back to check on him, and then it's like, oh, well, he doesn't need to be in jail. My favorite part of this whole movie is when the coroner or the one guy goes down to the basement of the plantation. He comes back up and he's like, I thought I heard something.
Tonight, Miss Caldwell and I were married. I am now master of this house. You see, you owe me an explanation.
Well, I came here to see Catherine. The door was open. She didn't answer my call, and I thought I heard somebody here in the cellar.
I, too, thought that I heard someone in the cellar.
I thought I heard something, too. Like,
yeah.
It's just that moment. I was just like, what?
The movie is a convoluted mess of just like, of weird, like vaguely within the vampire rules and just like this person who's dead, but then now they're alive, but then we found him dead, and so you're guilty of murder.
I think we'd better go back to the office, Doctor, while you do some explaining.
Kay! Kay, my darling!
Like, it's all this stuff that is happening, and the audience is aware. The audience is absolutely bored because we're constantly being told stuff that we already know with nothing fresh or new happening. And then by the time something fresh and new happens, all it is this grand scheme to cuck Count Dracula. And you're like, you don't
cuck Dracula.
Cuck Count Dracula. Like, all I could think of was Bela Lugosi in Ed Wood being like,
how dare that asshole bring up Karloff? You think it takes talent to play Frankenstein? It's all makeup and grunting.
Bella, I agree 100%. Now, Dracula, that's a role that requires talent.
Of course. Dracula requires presence. It's all in the eyes and the voice and the hand.
Playing Dracula takes presence and command and seduction. Like, yeah, that's totally what Dracula is. You don't cuck Count Dracula. Count Dracula cuck you. It'll fuck you. You know, like, that's all I could think. Because I'm like, yeah, they don't understand Dracula if they're doing this thing where it's like, we're going to use Dracula for his immortality and then cast him aside. And, you know, I'm watching that being like, Son of Dracula is an idiot then. Like, he's an absolute loser. Like, you can't take Dracula and turn him into a cuck, into a soy boy, into a simp. That undermines what Dracula is, unless that's what the whole story is going to be about. And it's like, the son of Dracula has like an inferiority complex because he's not as good of a vampire as his dad or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's absurd, but that would be better if they leaned into that as a theme than just the idea that, like, why did they even have to get married? Like, what does getting married have to do with her taking immortality from him?
That's where it feels like the movie was going one direction and then another writer went in another direction. Because there's a point where I'm like, okay, was the point? Was there a whole thing here where, like, Dracula's whole plan was to take over the plantation, which would have been really easy, but was that the plan all along? And it's just, he has no, like, even if he's the protagonist of the story, of course it doesn't work here, but like if he was the protagonist, then who is his opposition? Like, what's keeping him from being that? Because he could just easily murder all these people. It's almost like they could have gone the route of the last Mummy film where it was like, these people keep dying left and right, which is garbage, but it was like, they just keep dying left and right. And then you would at least had some mystery or intrigue. This movie just likes to show its hand at every corner. There's no like tease me, please me. There's no like mystery for the characters or for us.
There's no compelling force. There's no like this happens and then this happens and because this, like, there's no twists and turns or revelations.
Why did that?
It's just
there's no point where I'm going, why did that happen?
Yeah.
Like in a like, not because I'm confused, but like, okay, something's happening here. What are they doing with that? Where's like, you know, remember the first Dracula? Remember the first one? Even in the beginning when he comes out of the coffin, it's like we push into this coffin and we're in the dungeon of Dracula's castle. And then of course we finally see Dracula as he appears and it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of spooky. This is kind of mysterious. Like what's going on with
this guy
this?
And what's going on? And then we meet Renfield and it's like, okay, we're going to go to London, and then we go to London, and there's he murders some people, and then he's meeting his neighbors, and he's going to start seducing the women. Like there's some kind of guiding force. There's some kind of step by step. Here, you're just wondering.
You're so
why
confused because it feels like there's two writers in this movie, and it's probably there was, but it's like it feels like they were. It also reads like, oh yeah, we'll just add a couple scenes where this happens, and then we'll throw in a scene where this happens without really any, like, how does this connect with the rest of the movie kind of thing? Like, there's no flow from that scene to that scene because you're just throwing scenes left and right with no, like, connective tissue. So they just kind of happen. And then you get to a point where, like, okay, we got to write a scene that explains why that scene happened. So write that scene so we can just talk about this. It just feels like it was made on the fly. Like, it's just, that's how the movie feels.
I think it was made on the fly, but also with no money, and they kept avoiding spending money by, instead of an interesting scene, like, for example, instead of showing the scene with the little boy walking down the street at night, and there's a little wisp of smoke or fog, and it turns into a man, and he's like, hi, and, you know, you were just a bat, or you were just smoke, or... You know, and there's a creepy scene between Dracula and this little boy. Instead, we're in a scene of Professor Laszlo, who's our new Van Helsing, and the doctor are just talking and hanging out. I mean, it's literally like Van Helsing was split into two. One's the doctor and the other's his professor. And boom, combined, you'd have Van Helsing. So the two of them are sitting around talking about what they're going to do and how they're going to convince people. And then Dracula shows up out of nowhere and is just like, you're right. I am going to kill everybody. Ha ha ha. I'm going to kill you too. And then he's like, nope, look at my cross. So Dracula off. And right after that, they're like, you know, the doctor's like, I believe everything you have to say now, Professor Laszlo. Let's get to work. And just as they're doing that, this woman comes in with her kid. It's like, oh, you know, again, we get all this tell, don't show. He was bit. Look at these bite marks on his neck, which, by the way, they show the bite marks. And the doctor's like, oh, I know about crosses now. So now I'll fix those wounds by drawing crosses on it. But if you look at that shot, before they do the close-up, the camera's positioned in a way that you can see that he has a little Q-tip thing, and he's just mimicking that he's drawing, but he actually doesn't have any, you know, medicine or whatever. He's actually drawing nothing. He's just pretending that he's drawing. But it's right in the center of the frame, and it's in full view and focus. Again, I guarantee somebody was like, he's like, you know, the actor's like, should I paint for real or should I just fake it? And he's like, just fake it. Whatever. We'll fix it in post. But they never fixed it in post. They could have used a separate angle that didn't show the kid's neck, but like nobody cared. Like little details like that, nobody cared in this movie. They just shot it as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, because they're like, okay, it's just going to sell off the title because people want to see the next Dracula movie. Yes. So like, all right, cool. Like this is that movie. This is that movie. The only thing that makes me think you're not completely right, the only thing is the effects of this movie. That's the only thing that makes me go, somebody from the Invisible Man special effects group was like, hey, we want to do some cool effects for this movie. And like, we want to actually see him turn into a bat. We want him to see him turn to smoke.
But who do you think you're talking to, dude? You know what my response is going to be. My response is going to be, yes, effects are great. We finally get to see, instead of hold on.
I'm not saying
What's that? Running across the lawn. Looks like a huge dog.
Look at that giant dog there, and we don't see it.
Yeah.
Now we're actually seeing it. But what you want is those effects in a story that's great.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing. I am not disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying as the only saving grace, if there is a saving grace that makes this movie like, oh, that was cool, is the effects. Because they are some of the best Dracula effects we've seen out of all these movies, where we actually see, like twice, we see him actually turn it, like you see the animation of they did something where the bat came in and then he animated it into Alucard. And there's one scene where I'm like, I don't know how that was very effective how they did that, where he's in the woods and then he appeared. Like that was actually pretty good.
Well, and
or
even
the scene that you're talking about,
the smoke always looking great.
The smoke's really good. And you were talking about the scene in the swamp where it's like the coffin comes up and he comes out of the smoke, and then it like, that's a great scene.
Totally.
In a crappy movie. It's like, oh, this looks really cool.
Movie.
Yeah, this looks really cool. The movie's not very good.
If the Nansbot was here, he'd be like, the effects. But the story's good too, right? And he'd be like, no, dude, when effects are the best thing you have to offer, I'm just like, that sucks, because that would have been a great cherry on top. On that note, a couple other things that I appreciate. The cross in the moonlight was clever. That actually was a clever thing that occurred in this movie, where Frank is running through the woods, he falls in a graveyard, and then just as Dracula's about to suck him off, suddenly the moonlight shines through a crucifix and it creates a cross on his body in light. And then Dracula's like, oh no, I'm helpless now. I can't eat him. That was clever, right? In a movie that sucks. The moment when Dr. Brewster sees Kay sitting up in bed is like legitimately creepy, the way she's just like staring at him, you know? But you know, that's just a shot, I guess. And then, you know, as far as meaning could have gone, Laszlo brings up thanatophobia.
The girl was morbid. That often means thanatophobia, fear of death. And Alucard could promise her eternal life.
Eternal life at such a price?
Which, you know, like we've seen Endgame. We've seen the Thanos series, like Thanos, thanatophobia, fear of death. That would have been great if this whole movie would have been about the fear of death, to the point that Kay is willing to give her soul to become immortal. That goes back to the original Dracula episode of us talking about the idea, or Frankenstein, about death being a gift and that mortality has to be courageously faced, right? Instead of giving your soul away for immortality, which the moment you had immortality, you wouldn't want it. The moment you had it, you would realize that it was a curse and not a gift. That could have been the meaning of this whole movie, but then it gets swept away in all this BS, this stupid love triangle and cucking Dracula in a way that is insulting. The movie isn't insulting as much as Ghost and Mummy's Tomb.
Like they put like as much as we're ripping on this movie for like it's like the story being shoddy, it's like they did put some effort into this.
Some effort.
What I'm saying is like specifically with the what was it, Mummy's Curse, if I'm not mistaken, right? So
Mummy's Tomb was the one that we
Mummy's
hated.
Tomb. Sorry, thank you. So with Mummy's Tomb, that movie, it's like we had this really crappy intro, which all it is just explaining 10 minutes of the prior movie in a really lazy way. The next movie was just lazy in that it doesn't, like, they couldn't figure out how plot A comes to plot B, and so then it's like, where are we going with this? And that one's also messy. So the more we're talking about it, the more I'm like, originally came in here like, yeah, this is going to be above this and that. I'm like, I'm thinking a lot lower than initially.
I am below The Mummy, above The Ghost of Frankenstein. I think The Mummy was dry and also a bit of a hard watch, but not boring. Sparingly. I rarely bring out the B word, because generally, in my view, if you just say a movie is boring, if you can't explain why it was boring, then I think you might just be I will accuse you of just being a boring person who, you know, like your dopamine receptors are probably just fried out from, you know, too much of the black box. But this movie suffers from boredom of being cheap and just having people talking in rooms, not just people talking in rooms, but people talking in rooms about something we just saw or something that we should have had visualized, much like what we said about the opening of The Invisible Man Returns. It's like we're talking about some things that we should have been in the moment with, because that would be so much more compelling and interesting and character-driven and intriguing. Let me lay out one more scene that perfectly exemplifies this.
He's as nutty as a filbert. He's been back there for a long time talking to some dame who wasn't there. First he talks in his voice,
Then he answers in the woman's voice.
So you said earlier there's no central character to root for, and that's absolutely true. There's no better example of that than the moment when Frank escapes the jail. So what happens is Kay's like, I'm going to turn into smoke and I'm going to go knock out the guard and I'm going to get you a gun and you can run out of here and you're going to go kill Dracula so you and I can be immortal forever, whatever.
You can move about in the daytime. We can't. We must return to our graves before sunrise or we're destroyed.
How can I keep him from his grave?
You don't have to. You can destroy him in one of two ways. Either drive a stake through his heart or burn his grave before he reaches it. You must do this, Frank. For us.
It's a really exciting moment for just a moment.
Frank! Get back. Stay away from me. Stay away from me. Frank Stanley! What happened? Frank Stanley just escaped. Look out for him. He's armed.
Get after him. And if you have to shoot, do it.
Frank comes out and he's like, get near me and I'll kill you. And he runs off and suddenly the whole police station is going crazy. They chase after him and they're actually shooting at him. And then the drive immediately stops. Like the brakes are just slammed on once again as they casually begin speaking to the jailer who was knocked out, killing all urgency right away. So he can tell us what we already know.
What happened, Mac? How'd he get out?
I don't know, Sheriff. The keys were on the desk as usual. Now they're gone, and so was Stanley. I tried to stop him.
Did you have anything to do with this break, Dr. Brewster?
Certainly not.
We are as anxious as you are to keep him locked up.
More so. Did you hear him do any more talking to that girl?
What girl?
Catherine Caldwell.
Catherine Caldwell?
Oh, it's some kind of a crazy trick Stanley pulls. He pretends to be talking to some girl, first in his voice and then in hers.
He already told us that Frank was in his cell talking to himself. You know, it's like, yeah, he's talking to a woman and he does both voices. And then Frank escapes and we see that he's been knocked out, but they set him down and they're like, what happened? He's like, yeah, I got hit and I passed out for a second and he ran away. And before he ran away, he was talking to himself. It's like, we know all of this. He just ran off. Keep that going. Like, everybody should be, the whole cast of idiots should be getting in other cars and chasing after Frank as Frank is running as fast as he can. Like he drives into a tree and he gets out and he's running through the woods because he's got to go kill Dracula. He's got to go burn his thing before Dracula gets back and is safe in his grave before the sun comes out. Like he's racing to get there before the sun comes out. Meanwhile, all these guys are chasing him thinking that he's a murderer and they're trying to stop him. And he's like, you don't understand. I got to kill this Dracula guy because he's going to kill everybody in this city. But instead, it's like hectic thing is happening. They all sit down. So what just happened? He's like, I got hit on the head. And then he was talking to himself. It's like, we know all of this. Get on with it. Like if you understand sequencing of things, all it would have taken is you have the jailbreak scene and then you have them going to see the morgue, right? So like, switch those around. It's like you have the jail scene with the blonde sister, Claire or whatever. Meanwhile, the other guys, they go to the morgue, right? Like the Van Helsing duo, they go check out the body. Turns out the body is gone. And meanwhile, where's that body? Well, it's Kay's body. She's in the jail cell talking to Frank. And so all you needed was to just switch those scenes around so that as they're going back to the jail, because they're like, oh, if she's not here, then maybe she's with Frank. So they start heading back to the jail cell, and that's when Frank runs out with a gun and disappears. And then, you know what I'm saying? Just by switching a couple scenes around, everything flows. But nobody cared. Nobody cared to read the script and be like, well, hang on a second. You slam the brakes right here, but if you took that scene and you instead, after Frank runs off, then they go to the morgue.
It's all becoming as plain as day, Professor.
It has been to me for some time.
Well, then let's go take a look at that morgue.
They go to the morgue after Frank ran away, which is unimportant. Like once he's run off, that's more important to chase him down than to go check out the body in the morgue. It's a mess. This movie's a fucking mess. It's below Mummy for me. I think mishandling Dracula himself could be seen as insulting. I don't feel insulted like I do watching Ghost of Frankenstein.
My brain and that body would make me a leader of men. We would rule the state.
There's a case to be made that Ghost is more enjoyable.
There is an element there with this movie where you're like, it does feel like they put a little more effort and that's all I would have to say. It's like between Ghost and The Mummy's Tomb, this movie actually feels like they put somewhat of an effort into this movie. And it kind of feels that way in the fact that you've got Kurt Sidomak was the original writer of this film, then got taken over by his brother who I guess wanted to change everything in a really dumb way. And because of that, it's like you got little pieces left over of what could have been better. And obviously Kurt Sidomak's movies tend to be better. Like they're not great, but they're definitely better than this. And so it's like, then what are the other two movies? You got Ghost of Frankenstein, and then you got the one prior to that was Tomb, and it's like you can tell they really didn't care. This, it's like there's a little hints of they kind of cared, and there was some effects where they kind of cared. But overall, it's like this movie's. I'd put it under Mummy. Yeah, like I know no objections there, because the more we were talking about it, the more I was like, yeah, it's like I would rather watch Werewolf of London over this. I think Werewolf of London is definitely a better movie. At least even the script's better, even though if it's convoluted at times, it's better script.
Yeah, like as far as Dracula movies go, this is a horrible Dracula movie. Again, because you don't cuck Dracula. Dracula cucks you.
Dracula cucks you, man. He cucks you, bro.
Okay, so in my list of things that I don't hate about this movie, that don't make me confurious, I do like this ending. Did you appreciate this ending?
What, with the, like, him killing his girlfriend? Like, his girlfriend sucks?
Yes.
Like, you just love that? You're like, I hate this bitch. She gonna die.
The only reason I like it is because
it's worked in a better movie.
It's the one part of the movie. Yes. It's the one part of the movie that isn't ruined by somebody coming in and explaining to you what just happened. So basically, Frank does what he promised to do. He destroys Dracula's grave, which, for side note, for some reason, is no longer protected by the swamp. That was such a cool element that it's like, oh, Dracula's soil box sunk in the water of this swamp. And so when he comes out of it, it floats to the surface, and then he comes out in smoke. But then you assume then he goes back in it and it sinks.
So
Makes sense, right?
It.
So that you can't find it. So that he's protected during the day. That's actually really clever. But then all of a sudden it's not in the swamp anymore. It's in this little hovel thing. This like weird drainage thing. Why? Why did it change? I mean, they changed writers, I guess, and suddenly the location changed. But once again, the idiot squad shows up. Right after Alucard dies, the idiot squad shows up to tell us what we just saw.
This is one thing we didn't foresee, Doctor.
How could we? I don't get it. What's happened?
To maintain his existence among the undead, Dracula had to be back in his coffin before sunrise. Frank prevented it, as you can see.
So again, the urgency is killed. Where's Frank? We got to find him. And they're like standing around talking like knuckleheads, being like, oh, it looks like he just killed Alucard. Yeah, we just watched it. Like, we know what's happening.
Yeah, because the thing you were describing is like, there is a meaning for a character to say that to another character, like they're explaining it.
Yeah, like if the audience so far in the movie had not been informed of the concept of a vampire needing to get into his coffin by dawn, then one character would explain it to another character so that the audience is simultaneously informed. But it was already explained to us and we watched it happen, so it's just wasting time again. You just end up being redundant for no reason and killing the urgency of your ending. So all that being said, though, the final minute is perfect. The final minute, there's no dialogue, and yet we understand what's going on because we're being shown and not told, and you're putting it together.
Oh. Okay.
All the way up to the final shot, like even him putting the ring on her finger, you know, you're kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? Is she going to turn him now? Is he going to choose evil? He burns her up, and there's that cool shot where the fire, it's kind of like strung up in front of the lens, and then it swings away, and you reveal Frank's devastated expression, like just this countenance.
Yeah,
you know,
I killed her,
and it's perfect. I'm shocked, based on everything that happens in the whole movie, that it didn't end with Laszlo being like, oh, good job, you did it. You burned Kay to save her soul from eternal damnation. Good job, dude. You know, like telling us what we're watching, you know, like that was what the whole movie had done up to that point. So
yeah,
it's just, it's really frustrating. It fills me with curiosity because it's like,
it's very confusing.
You have this whole universal apparatus at your disposal, and it's as if nobody cared. I mean, even like to our point earlier, even if you don't have money, you can still be creative in how you tell the story. Even with a little bit of money, you can do a hell of a lot. And they just didn't. Like this movie, again, it's below Mummy so far as it is weak and sloppy. The Mummy just suffers from being dry, as we keep saying, and that makes it kind of a hard watch. This is an even harder watch because it's coupled with that inexcusable sloppiness, but never to the point of feeling insulted like the Ghost of Frankenstein and the Mummy's Tomb. So, all in all, the premise itself is fresh, but they completely drop the ball on how the story is structured and presented, versus Ghost and Tomb just being insulting garbage that does nothing more than recycle its predecessors in the worst way. This movie could have worked if Dracula had shown up in this town without warning or invitation and met this young woman, Kay, that's into the occult because she has an irrational fear of death. And it's this fear that invites the evil of Dracula into her life and therefore her family's life. And then she has this wealthy landowning father, so the opportunistic and no longer wealthy Dracula slowly but surely seduces her to the dark side while killing off her family members so that the two of them inherit everything while her old fiancé and the town doctor try to stop them. This would have nailed that classic vampire theme of death being a gift and immortality being a curse while showcasing Kay's cowardice as she's actively sacrificing others for her own benefit, literally consuming her entire family just to save her own skin, which is the highest form of evil, all because of her thanatophobia, the fear of death, the emotional manifestation of the strongest animal instinct, the drive to survive, an instinct conquered by those who courageously sacrifice their own well-being for others. Men like Van Helsing, a man of knowledge, discipline, and will.
Your will is strong, Van Helsing.
Self-control while facing death itself. Remember that thing that this Jesus guy had to endure 14 grueling stations of willingly and then die horribly, all of which is encapsulated by the symbol of the crucifix, which is why the horrendously selfish, parasitic vampire Count Dracula is so abhorred by its presence, as he is the personification of its opposite philosophy of degenerate self-centeredness, living eternally by drinking the blood of others instead of facing death courageously.
How in the world did you drive him away?
Showed him this.
A simple cross.
It would take too long to explain why they fear it, but they do.
All of this could have been achieved with a little creativity and drive, but again, nobody cared. So that's where I think we're both landing on below the Mummy, but above the Ghost of Frankenstein at number 17.
I'm there. No objections there.
All right. We're locking it in then. Number 17, The Son of Dracula. Number 17, Below the Mummy, Above the Ghost of Frankenstein. Cover your ears, lightning's coming. So loud. So loud in these headphones. Okay, who do you want to toast to? I already threw out a suggestion.
I think that we should toast to J. Edward Bromberg.
Is that the... Oh, that's Laszlo, right?
That's Laszlo.
Nobody really is deserving of a toast. This is just his last movie.
And he had a lot of great character roles.
He's been great in everything. This is certainly more kind of low-key for him. He's just the Van Helsing replacement.
In this movie, he's not doing anything crazy, but considering the fact that we saw him in Invisible Agent and he really plays up a character there, and then we saw him in Phantom of the Opera and he plays up a different type of character, a little more aristocratic type. And then this movie, he's somewhat mysterious doctor, but you know, whatever. They didn't really care as much.
He's a professor.
He was an actor. He was great, you know, like he's great in the 3 movies that we saw him in. He was great.
Apparently he is Hungarian, which they kind of like they're like, yeah, Dracula's not from Transylvania. He's from Hungary.
Is Transylvania in Hungary, though? Because Transylvania is not a country. Transylvania is a region.
It's
historic
like
region
Transylvania's
in
Romania. And
Romania,
Hungary neighbors Romania. So it's like, but in this one, they're just kind of like, he's Hungarian because Bela Lugosi
was Hungarian.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. So just kind of funny. It's kind of similar to the whole James Bond is actually Scottish because Sean Connery's Scottish. So
he's Hungarian. He's not Romanian.
Yeah, we're gonna just switch it because of the actor.
Why not?
Portrayed him because we love him so much. Anyway, so J. Edward Bromberg. He's just had a good run of a few movies in a row, just being an interesting character actor in this whole series, and this is his last one. So as much as he was a little more low key in this one, he actually was just he was kind of pleasant. He was kind of like a Karen Bay type of just like decent ally.
So toast to him.
To J. Edward Bromberg.
There you go. There you go, buddy.
Happy Halloween, homie.
Happy Halloween.
Good night, y'all. A, B, C, D,
E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V.
Just finish it.
I don't know the rest of it, actually.
You don't know the rest of the alphabet? Are you stupid?
It's all you have to do.